Gary Booysen from Rand Swiss joins us now to speak about the markets. A very impressive day on the local bourse, Gary. I think the JSE ending the day off at around 1.5% in the green, and there were gains across most of the sectors. Your thoughts on the performance of the local bourse today?
I think it's following on from a very, very strong performance from Wall Street on Friday. So Wall Street was up over 1.5%, and we saw the follow-through in Europe as well. We had Hong Kong closed this morning just for a public holiday, so we saw lighter volumes in Asia. But certainly, everything seems to be rallying against the US dollar at the moment, and the dollar index falling back to about 108. And I think people looking forward and just hoping that we might see a little bit of positive news this week out of a lot of the big economies when they report their inflation figures.
Well, that's very interesting because the last few weeks there's been a lot of jitters on the markets based on inflation and the trajectory it's taken. Speaking of the Federal Reserve, or the central bank in the United States, Gary, reiterating that it's going to remain pretty aggressive with interest rate hikes as much as it takes to curb inflation, and yet we saw a strong recovery in the local unit, which was really in the pits last week.
Yeah, absolutely. So we finished the week around 17.30 to the US dollar. We're back to about 17.10 at the moment. So that's a big strengthening for the day. As I said, this is all a dollar story. Yes, we have our own local issues that people can point to load shedding and our own challenges. But this is, the dollar has been weakening today, specifically against all emerging market currencies and developed market currencies as well. And like you say, I think it's got to do with the idea that we might see a little bit of moderation coming out of the Fed. Now, while the Fed speeches have been very, very hawkish. The next FOMC meeting is on the 21st of September, and the market is pricing another 75 basis point hike. We get US inflation figures out, later in the week. And if you look at the headline number, previously it came in at 8.5%. The market's currently expecting it to drop down to 8.1%. So expecting a little bit of moderation there. If you look at the core inflation, though, we are expecting a move up from around 5.9% to 6.1%. So core inflation in the US still rising. That's obviously ex-food and ex-energy. So I think the idea is everyone's looking at maybe a slightly weaker oil price and thinking that's going to give the Fed maybe a little bit of breathing room. If we see a very, very positive number, and positive being a number that is a lot lower than expected, I think people are hoping that, or certainly market participants are hoping that we might see the expectations around that rate hike later in the month moving from 75 basis points or 0.75% down to around 50 basis points or 0.5%. And if that happens, I think we're going to get very, very green markets. And I was reading one of the currency notes this morning, and very, very optimistic analysts saying that if we do see a decent inflation print this week, we could easily see the rand strengthening all the way back to sort of mid to low 16s against the dollar.
Oh my, Gary, don't tease us, because with the price of Brent crude as low as it is at the moment, and you being as optimistic as you are with the local unit, we might see lower fuel prices, but I don't want us to get ahead of ourselves. In the meantime, let's speak about Distil, Heineken, Competition Commission giving them the green light to go ahead with that transaction. Of course, there are some conditions, but what did you make of that?
I think it was to an extent expected as well. So we saw a little bit of a move higher just on Friday, I think a little bit. Today also mildly positive. The Competition Commission, I think that it was overwhelmingly expected to approve the deal. It was all about what conditions were going to be put in place. They did flag that Heineken would have around 65% of the cider business in South Africa, and as such have recommended that they divest from Strongbow, which was launched in 2016. There's also a list of other conditions that are attached, which are also largely to be expected. One of which is that Heineken is going to need to invest 10 billion rand into the South African economy over the next 5 years, as well as a couple of other much smaller commitments around setting up the likes of an SME fund to assist small and medium enterprises at around 400 million, and a few other conditions. But I think overall very good news from Heineken, which is going to allow them to compete with AB InBev and Diageo in the region.
Very interesting insights. Gary, as always, thank you very much for joining us this evening. That's Gary Booysen from Rand Swiss, and that's all your market news for this hour. But stick